Hi, welcome to Politics After Dark. I'm Mike O'Connell, founder of the Binghamton Vanguard, and your host. Stay tuned for roughly a half hour of politics, music, humor, and a few surprises, sometimes even for me. Politics After Dark is a look at political issues and questions, local, national, and on the campus of Binghamton University. Coming to you today from Loudoun County, Virginia. More on that later. Politics After Dark used to air Tuesday nights from 8:30 to 9 on public access cable channel 4 in Binghamton, New York. It is written by Mike O'Connell, produced by Mike O'Connell, directed by Mike O'Connell, based on an idea originally created by Mike O'Connell, and starring the aforementioned Mike O'Connell. Right now you are listening to simply the sounds of nature. This is the part where I used to say you're listening to the Mike O'Connell Trio performing Mike's theme. However, when we are al fresco, when we are outdoors, I'm usually accompanied by nothing except, as I said, the sounds of nature, birds and lawnmowers and air conditioners and the units next door and other people playing, other people looking at me going, what the heck is that guy doing? At least when I did this in Binghamton, people knew who I was. They said, oh, that's Mike filming Politics After Dark. Here, I'm just getting a lot of strange stares. You'll forgive me if I'm a little bit out of practice. It's been a while. I'm surprised I got through that opening intro as well as I did. I haven't done it in almost 7 years. The final episode of Politics After Dark aired in December of 2011. As I film this today, it is June 2nd, 2018. My plan is to drop this on June 7th. That would be my birthday. That would be birthday number 36, if you are counting. It was always a tradition on Politics After Dark for me to do some kind of birthday episode. I usually film those at Recreation Park. Here today, I'm at Substitute Park location near my home in Sterling, Virginia. And as I said, more on that later. For those of you keeping track, yeah, we're at the point now that Politics After Dark, if you look at the total length of time it was on the air, it's now been off the air longer than it was on the air. Now, officially, the show ran from March of 2004 to December 2011. That's 7.5 years, but there was a break of about 1.5 years in there, from the end of 2009 to June of 2011. And it was 7 years ago that Politics After Dark version 2.0 began its run. Final, I think it was about 30 episodes that I aired from June to December of 2011. What I said in that final episode, the final episode, because the one from 2009 was also called the final episode, was that there would never be a third incarnation of Politics After Dark. I was quite explicit about that. There would never be a third incarnation of Politics After Dark. And I was certain about that for 5 or 6 years. And yet, here we are, third incarnation of Politics After Dark. The plan is to post this on YouTube this Thursday. For me, it'll drop Thursday, June 7th, 2018. I'm now at the point where I have lived the same amount of time in the 20th and 21st centuries in my life. I'm born in 1982. All right, I've now spent 18 years, roughly, in the 20th century and 18 years in the 21st century. I'm still trying to decide which one has been more fun. I'm sure everyone wrestles with this. What's more fun, being a kid or being a grown-up? When you're a kid, you don't have to work. You know, everything just comes to you for free, but you can't just buy it. That's really what it boils down to. When you're an adult, you can obtain whatever you want. You just have to buy it. You have to be willing to spend your own money on something. Whereas when you're a kid, you don't have to work, you don't have to earn anything. It just kind of comes to you, but it's largely at the whim of others. You're just relying on gifts. I don't necessarily think that's a better way to go through life. Generally, life is better when you're younger if you're an adult, but I'm having fun now in my 30s too, as I did when when I was in my 20s. I'll get into some of the differences between my life now versus the first or second incarnations of Politics After Dark. There have been a few major changes, one in particular. In addition to my moving, I now also have a child. I have a beautiful little boy who just turned 4 years old, and I plan to still be living here a year from now, and he'll be going to this school. I'm in front of, actually behind, Guilford Elementary School in Sterling, Virginia, and I live not too far from here. It's within walking distance. As I said, this is sort of the recreation park. Walking distance, that's a Twilight Zone reference. If you caught that one, that's what is marked on the bandstand of the recreation park. A place to which I have brought my son. That brought me great joy a few months ago when I brought Franklin to Recreation Park. This is our recreation park here. Behind me you can see the ball field, and there's actually 2 baseball diamonds here, and the school, and a playground that we spend a lot of time at, and a blacktop area behind me. We spend a lot of time on this property. One of the things I've been doing in life is substitute teaching, and I've had a few different gigs for our local school district over the last few years. I actually started in 2014. I've subbed a number of times at this place, and I have nothing but nice things to say about it. Sometimes you sub at a school and there's over 80 schools, if you can believe it. There's over 80 school buildings in Loudoun County Public Schools. It's a mind-boggling number for me, from someone from upstate New York, for whom every school district or every municipality has its own school district, and some districts have like 3 or 4 schools. It's just unbelievable. And Binghamton has 10, I think. That's a huge number in upstate New York. That down here, the school districts are by county. Loudoun County has, I think it's 16 high schools, about that number of middle schools, and something like 50 elementary schools in the same district. I've been to most of the 80-plus schools as a daily substitute. My usual qualifications for whether I'd return to school, because sometimes at the end of the day you walk out of the school and you say, yeah, thanks for having me. Sometimes you have a good day and you say, thanks for having me, I'd come back anytime. Here I always tell them, thanks for having me, I'd come back anytime. My usual qualifications are the secretaries nice, and is it easy to park? If the secretaries are rude, or if the parking lot's a mess, forget it. I'm not going back to that school. I don't care how great the students are or were. If it's hard to park, or if I encounter other rude adults, which doesn't happen that often, but the parking lot's more the issue usually. That either parents, or if you're at high school, you might have students driving their cars too. It's hard to park, it's hard to drive in and out of the school. Forget it. I'm not going back there. There's 80 other schools I can choose from. Most recently, I've had a long-term sub assignment at the middle school, which is just down the street from me. That's Sterling Middle School, and it's close to my house. It's close to where my son goes to preschool. I've enjoyed my time there. There's certain schools you like going back to. Generally, the ones that are close, easy to park, and the secretarial staff is nice. Friendly janitors is also another thing. You need a classroom open, or you need some furniture moved. Friendly janitors is another good one. So I've talked about my son. I've talked about my job. Let's see, geez, I still have about 20 minutes left. Actually, as I said, I'm out of practice. I forgot to look at my watch when I started. This was a constant thing, if you remember, on the first or second incarnation of Politics After Dark. When I was outside, constantly looking at my watch, and yes, it is still the Mickey Mouse watch. Same watch, same car, same spouse. So some things in my life have remained the same. Those things are the same. Less hair. I don't have the huge white guy afro anymore that I had for many years. Basically, I've written about this, and I've probably talked about it before, that all men in all over the world, I imagine, I assume this is true in every culture. This is a universal thing. I suppose it's true for women as well, but I notice it more in men because I am a man myself, and most of my friends are, and we're all experiencing the same thing, and that is we all eventually become our dads. And I've spoken about this before, and I've written about it before. That used to scare me. That I would become Michael O'Connell Sr. Now I realize I'm becoming Michael O'Connell Sr. I'm even starting to look like Michael O'Connell Sr. I'm totally comfortable with it. I'm teacher by day, many hobbies. For my dad, it was cars and tennis. For me, it's music and doing things like this, expressing my views. And I have a son, much like my father did. I plan for my son to be an only child. I was an only child. I turned out just fine. And now next door we've got the AC unit kicked back on the what I affectionately refer to as the FEMA trailers next door. This is one thing I should mention. In Loudoun County, which I've described other places as the polar opposite of Binghamton. Picture everything about Binghamton, picture the opposite. That's Loudoun County. One, it's growing, people are moving in there, businesses are going up, schools are being built, as opposed to the place where schools and churches and such are collapsing and closing down, and people are moving out. No one is sticking around after graduation. Here, people are flocking to this place, and things are being built all the time. The schools are being filled so fast, the district literally can't even keep up with the construction. So they put out, I call them the FEMA trailers. They're a little bit better than that. They're like large garages or sheds that some of the schools have, because there's so many students moving in. They cannot be housed in the regular school building. They have like trailers out in the back. First time I remember subbing at a school, they told me, "Oh yeah, Mr. O'Connell, you'll be in trailer number 5 or whatever it's called." Like, what? It's like, "Oh yeah, you go out in the back parking lot. It's next to the running track there by the long jump pit." What are you talking about? Like they're putting one over on the new guy. No, it's out there. It's in the back. It's one of the trailers. Okay, go back. The rooms are nice. They're actually done up pretty nice. They're like a nice little apartment you got back there. If you hear that buzz, the drone going on in the background, that is the AC unit from one of the trailers out back. Enough about work. One of the things that I've talked about before, and I've brought this up, I think on maybe on this show before, is that on the talking about dads, rules my father taught me. Now my father has been deceased for over a decade, but I can still feel his presence and hear his voice. It's very loud. You can hear it everywhere you go. I don't know if he ever said this explicitly, but there was a certain mantra in the O'Connell household, which was, never let work get in the way of your hobbies. Do a good job at work, of course. You can't let that consume your entire life. You gotta save time for your hobbies. And but the two biggest ones I have are music and producing things like this. By the way, many of the early episodes of Politics After Dark you can view on this channel. If you're seeing this, you already know that. You can view some of the old episodes when I was sitting in my armchair. More hair. If you're wondering what happened to the armchair, what happened to the set of Politics After Dark, as long as we're talking hobbies for a minute, the set pieces of the set got moved to a museum of sorts. I gave the orange armchair and the table, I think one of my orange cups too, went to the museum, went to a friend of mine who's the, let's call him the curator of the Politics After Dark Museum, a fan of the show. I don't know what has since happened to those things. That was a great number of years ago. But I didn't take the chair. The gumball machine, as you recall, I smashed on the last episode of the show before I drove off. And other relics of the show that you might have seen in the background, that some of the things on the mantle I still have. The Edward Hopper painting I still have in print. Other than that, most of that stuff is gone. But as I said, birthday episodes we usually did outside anyway, accompanied by nothing but the sound of nature and air conditioning units. You may recall on that final episode of Politics After Dark, and I said there would be no third incarnation of Politics After Dark, as I paused to look at my watch again. It really doesn't matter the time today. I'm not constrained on the 8:30 to 9. I can let this run as long as I want. The tape will run out at a point. You may see me cut off in mid-sentence. I'm warning you now. That used to happen on Channel 4 also. The thing I said, that there would never be a third incarnation of Politics After Dark. And I was going to hold true to that. 5 or 6 years went by, never even gave Politics After Dark another thought. But not long ago, I started posting the old ones on YouTube, and there was also one issue that I really wanted to discuss. And I said to myself, if there ever were a third incarnation of Politics After Dark, this is the way I'd begin. And I've discussed this with other people off air as well. So here it is. I should have led with this, but I wanted to get to some other housekeeping issues first. Now we're into the meat of the program. What is the way I would have started the third incarnation of Politics After Dark? Having been off the air for several years, there was one major event in the Binghamton area that occurred. It had to do with a certain former state senator from Binghamton. And I always thought to myself, the last 2 or 3 years, if I ever did a third incarnation of Politics After Dark, I would simply start this way. I would say, Tom Lips. Was I right? Was I right? What's the thing I told you for 15 years? I told you that Tom Libbis was a crook. What happened? For those of you who are not from the Binghamton area, maybe have no idea what I'm talking about, have no idea who Tom Libbis is, former state senator from Binghamton. Mr. Libbis was the state senator from the Binghamton area for almost 30 years, and he was part of the group I affectionately referred to as the Republican crime family. Got that idea from someone else, but I adopted the moniker for him and that crew as well. And from 2000-ish until 2015 or so, I told you this guy was a crook. I told you he used the power of that, and he was beloved, right? Because he'd put one over on the Binghamton area, the citizens of the Binghamton area. He was beloved. There are statues and monuments to this guy everywhere. He's the Franklin Roosevelt of Binghamton. People just love this guy, right? I told you he was a crook. I told you he used the power of that office to enrich his friends and punish his enemies. And I was one of the enemies. I told you this for 15 years. It largely fell on deaf ears. Oh, that couldn't possibly be true about Tom Libbis. He's the greatest person who's ever come upon the Binghamton area. I said, nope. He's a crook. He's using more money to enrich himself and his friends and punish his enemies. I say this for 15 years. Wouldn't you know, a judge agreed with me. And Libous was indicted on charges of, I'm going to mess up the legalese, but it was influence peddling. I think the literal peddling of influence, as in something like, hey, I will steer money I'm a public official, I will steer money towards your company if you do this thing for me, if you hire my son as a lawyer, which is what the bulk of it was. And to me, it was just the tip of the iceberg of a number of issues that were all related to the same thing. It was all about influence peddling, that I will benefit you if you do this thing for me. Now, I realize that's every politician. That's what you do. You're not selling a product. You're not selling widgets. You're selling access and government contracts. That's what you do. You have no legitimate product to sell. You're just selling this intangible thing. Well, with Libous, it was more explicit, and it was a tit-for-tat arrangement, a quid pro quo, if you will. A quid pro quo. That's my best William F. Buckley. That the arrangement was, among other things, that Libous would steer money towards a particular law firm if they would hire his son. His son ended up doing jail time over this. Libous would have gone to jail, except he was dying from cancer anyway, and the judge gave a little leniency on that, put him on some kind of house arrest for the last 6 months or so of his life. He had to give up his Senate seat in disgrace, and did pass away some months later from cancer. I'm disappointed to see people die of cancer, but I was pleased to see him brought to justice. Now, I will say, just to show that I try to stay up on these things, some of the charges, at least, were later, I'm not even going to call them vacated, I'm going to call them whitewashed by a friendly judge. Doesn't change the fact that he had to resign his seat. The influence peddling and other petty and non-petty crimes did occur, and I would submit to you it was not a one-time occurrence. It was 30 years of bribes and government excess. I believe he was elected in 1988 and served until just a couple of years ago. Oversaw the downfall of the Binghamton area. Place I no longer live. I'm coming to you from my new home today. If you're wondering what you're watching, it's Politics After Dark, version 3.0. I guess I don't really have to announce it, because if you're watching this on a computer screen, it's just there on the bottom of your screen. It says Politics After Dark. It has my name. All the other info you would need is right there at the bottom of your screen. When I was doing this on television, it was every once in a while I had to say, you're watching Politics After Dark. My name is Mike O'Connell. Yes, that Mike O'Connell, star of politics, television, rock and roll, the Republican rock star, here with you every Tuesday night from 8:30 to 9, right here on Public Access Cable Channel 4, the channel formerly known as Channel 6. I would tell you to jack up the volume on your television set, because the volume on Channel 4 seemed to be a little bit lower than the volume on the commercial stations. It was a trick, though, to remember to turn your volume back down before you went to one of the other stations. Otherwise, you'd flip it and you'd be watching Law and Order really, really loud. If you can't hear my voice, just jack up the volume on your computer. It'll sound fine. I am unmiked today. I'm simply going cheap camera out in the park. This is a classic boy with his camera episode. I'm 36 years old. I'm still doing it. I can't remember if this was the camera I used for Politics After Dark. I think it's actually a different one. I'm on camera number 5 or 6. I had so many problems over the years with old cameras breaking on me. Time Warner Cable used to make me give them a VHS-C tape, and it was hard to find old camcorders and old blank tapes to use in those things. I would end up buying several of those on Craigslist, and they would break down. This one is digital, so yeah, this one must be new, post Politics After Dark version 2.0. I mentioned that you never want to let work get in the way of your hobbies. I've continued playing the piano down here. I'm mostly just playing myself. One of the things I really miss about Binghamton is playing with bands, because the guys I played with, guys and girls I played with, really became my friends. And the things I miss about Binghamton are my friends and family members, playing music with my friends, sometimes family members, and throwing big parties with music and all of my friends. I've gotten to do that a couple times, and I'll be back. I figure every 5 years or so I'll come back to Binghamton and throw a big party with music and my friends. Every once in a while I get together with my old friends to play some music. And as I've said, and I did say on that final episode of Politics After Dark 2.0, it was, I'll seek you out. I will find you. There are many people in Binghamton that I enjoy seeing, and when I do come to Binghamton, I will seek you out. I will find you. I'm that guy. I keep in touch. So that kind of justifies my moving, knowing that I can go back and visit people whenever I want. Play music with people whenever I put something together. If I have to be the one to put it together, I'll put it together. Around here, where I'm playing with strangers and I have to give them market value for their musical expertise, it's less fun. That's why I usually just play myself, and I get to play all the time. I basically became the same guy I was in Binghamton. And it was even funny, when I first moved here, I was working in a restaurant part-time. This was before I got the teaching job. I've actually had a couple teaching jobs. Worked at a restaurant part-time and played music part-time. That was the same job I had in Binghamton. And then I got a job teaching at a career college down here. Part-time teacher, part-time musician, part-time working in a restaurant. That was the same thing I was doing in Binghamton. It was just here in Northern Virginia. I guess that's the real me. No matter where you live, you always become the real you. Now I stopped working at the restaurant several years ago. Teaching is more, I hesitate to call anything full-time. I've talked about this before. That's just for Bureau of Labor Statistics. Whether something's full-time or part-time, only the government statisticians care about that one. It's how do you split up your time? For me, it's, well, I'm a teacher and I'm a musician too. And I get to play all the time. I live in a wealthy area. Loudoun County actually is the wealthiest county by median family income in America. Wealthiest county.